Video opens with a high-energy, electrifying animation sequence. A silhouette of a warrior, muscles tensed, aura flaring violently. The screen cracks with energy. Upbeat, intense electronic, rock music plays. Voiceover. You feel it, don't you? That invisible ceiling. That barrier you keep slamming into, over and over again. It's the weight on your shoulders after a colossal failure. The sting of rejection. The quiet shame of not being good enough. We've been taught to fear this feeling. To avoid it at all costs. But in doing so, we've trapped ourselves in something I call the Plateau Prison. A self-imposed sentence where you are locked in by the fear of the very pain that could set you free. But what if I told you that failure isn't the end of your story? What if I told you that being brought to the brink of absolute destruction is not a curse, but a requirement? Stick with me, and I will show you the philosophy of the warrior elite, the secret of the Saiyan race, and how you can unlock the legendary Zenkai Boost to turn your most devastating defeats into your greatest source of power. Phase 2. The problem. You've been there. You poured every ounce of your soul into a project, a presentation, a relationship, an exam. You visualized success. You did the work. You walked into that arena, convinced this was your moment. And you got crushed. It wasn't just a loss. It was a demolition. A public dismantling of your effort and your ego. The silence in the room after your presentation bombed. The one-sentence rejection email for the job you thought was yours. The gut-wrenching realization that your best simply wasn't enough. In that moment, the world doesn't just go quiet. It gets loud, inside your head. That voice, the cruelest critic you'll ever know, starts its monologue. Asterisk, see? I told you. You're an imposter. You aimed too high. You don't have what it takes. Everyone else saw it. Now you see it too. You feel a burning in your chest, a toxic cocktail of shame and frustration. You look at others who are succeeding, and you feel a universe away. They seem to be operating on a different level, powered by a different source. You, meanwhile, are left sorting through the rubble of your confidence, feeling broken, exposed, and weak. Let's take a real-world scenario. You're a programmer. You spend 6 months building an app, your passion project. You launch it with fanfare, expecting validation, expecting success. Instead, crickets. A handful of downloads. A few brutal 1-star reviews pointing out flaws you never saw. The silence of the market is deafening. The initial pain is sharp. But the real damage, the hidden cost of living in the Plateau Prison, comes later. It's the insidious poison that seeps into your future decisions. The next time a brilliant, ambitious idea sparks in your mind, you immediately douse it with the cold water of that memory. You think, no, that's too risky. Let's aim for something smaller, something safer. You stop volunteering for the high-stakes projects at work. You stop speaking up in meetings. You start playing not to win, but to not lose. Your ambition shrinks. Your world gets smaller. The Plateau Prison, which was once just the location of your last defeat, becomes the blueprint for your entire life. You've confused a single lost battle with a lifelong war, and you've surrendered before the next shot is even fired. This is the true tragedy of mishandling failure. It convinces you that the ceiling you just hit is the sky. But the warriors of legend, the Saiyans, they knew a different truth. They knew that the ceiling was never the sky. It was a whetstone. It was a launching pad. They understood a fundamental, paradoxical law of power that we have forgotten. Phase 3. The solution. In the Dragon Ball universe, the Saiyans are a warrior race with a terrifyingly unique biological trait. It's called a Zenkai Boost. The principle is simple, yet profound. Anytime a Saiyan survives a near-death experience, their power doesn't just return to its previous level. It skyrockets to a new plateau, far beyond what it was before. The very thing that almost annihilated them becomes the catalyst for their evolution. This isn't just a convenient plot device for a story. It is one of the most powerful philosophical and psychological metaphors for growth ever conceived. The Zenkai Boost teaches us that resilience, the ability to bounce back, is a novice's game. The master's game is Antifragility, the ability to bounce back stronger. To integrate this philosophy into your own life, you need to understand its 3 core principles. Principle 1. the necessity of near destruction. Comfort is the enemy of growth. True, exponential leaps in power, skill, or understanding do not happen when you are safe. They don't happen when you're winning by a comfortable margin. They happen when you are pushed to the absolute ragged edge of your capabilities. They happen when your back is against the wall, your energy is depleted, and every fiber of your being is screaming for you to quit. Think of Goku on his way to Namek, training under 100 times Earth's gravity. He wasn't just doing a tough workout. He was systematically bringing his body to the brink of cellular collapse, over and over again. He understood that to reach a level no one had ever reached, he had to endure a process no one else would dare to endure. You must seek the battles that carry the genuine risk of total, crushing defeat. Because it is only in that space, at the very precipice of your limits, that the door to your next level is even revealed. Principle 2. The Alchemy of Recovery. This is the most misunderstood part of the Zenkai philosophy. The power boost doesn't happen while you're getting beaten down. It happens in the quiet moments afterwards. It is forged in the crucible of recovery. When a Saiyan is healed by a Senzu bean or a healing tank, their body isn't just patching up wounds. It's running a diagnostic. It's analyzing the attack that almost killed it. It's rewriting its own code, reinforcing its defenses, and upgrading its power output to ensure that a threat of that same magnitude will never be a threat again. For us, this recovery phase is not passive. It's not about just waiting for the emotional pain to fade. It is an active, conscious process of integration. It's where you sit down in the rubble of your failure and you don't just cry about it, you study it. You become a scientist of your own defeat. You analyze the data, you find the lesson, and you integrate that lesson so deeply that it becomes a part of your very DNA. Without this alchemical process, a beating is just a beating. With it, a beating becomes a baptism. Principle 3. The Recalibration of Identity. A true Zenkai boost doesn't just make you stronger. It fundamentally changes who you are. Your perception of your own limits is shattered and redrawn. Before Vegeta was nearly killed by Zarbin, he believed Zarbin was his superior. After he recovered from that beating, he didn't just have more power, he had a new identity. The belief, Zarbin is stronger than me, was permanently deleted from his psyche. His internal reality was recalibrated. When you survive a failure you thought would break you, you earn an irreversible piece of self-knowledge. I can withstand that. This knowledge is more valuable than any victory. It becomes your new baseline. The fear that once paralyzed you now seems manageable. The challenges that once seemed like mountains now look like hills. You are no longer the person who is afraid of that specific failure. You have evolved. You have become the person who survived it. This is the ultimate prize of the Zenkai philosophy. Not just an increase in power, but a transcendence of your former self. Think of it like tempering a sword. To create the legendary katana, the swordsmith heats the steel to a searing, almost molten state, a point of near destruction. Then, he plunges it into cold water, a violent shock. This process, repeated over and over, forces the very molecular structure of the steel to realign, becoming incredibly hard and resilient. The sword doesn't just get patched up, it is fundamentally transformed by the very process that threatened to melt it into slag. You are that blade. Your failures are the forge. Phase 4. The application. So how do we take this epic philosophy and make it a practical tool in our lives? How do we build our own Zenkai engine? It requires a deliberate, 4-step training protocol. This isn't easy. It requires the heart of a warrior. But if you commit to it, you will escape the Plateau Prison for good. Step 1. The near-death audit. You cannot experience a Zenkai boost by playing it safe. You must intentionally seek out challenges that push you to your breaking point. I want you to sit down this week and identify one area of your life, your career, your fitness, your creative work, and define a goal that genuinely scares you. A goal where the probability of failure is real and high. This isn't about being reckless. It's about being a strategic warrior. If you're a public speaker, don't just give another safe talk. Sign up for a high-stakes competition. If you're a runner, don't just run another 5K. Train for an ultra-marathon. If you're an entrepreneur, don't just tweak your product. Pitch to the investor you're most terrified of. Your task is to find the edge of your current ability and dance on it. You had to be willing to get hit. You had to be willing to fail spectacularly. This is your 100x gravity training. Embrace it. Step 2. The Postmortem Protocol. When the failure happens, and it will happen, your protocol begins. The moment you feel that wave of shame and anger, you must override it with the cool logic of a scientist. You must perform a ruthless postmortem on your defeat. Take out a journal or a document and answer these questions with brutal honesty. Do not blame. Do not make excuses. Just analyze. Question 1. What was the exact point of failure? Pinpoint the precise moment where things went wrong. Question 2. What assumption did I hold that was proven false? Question 3. What critical skill gap was exposed? Question 4. What one lesson, if I burn it into my soul, will prevent this specific type of failure from ever happening again? This process transforms the emotional, chaotic pain of failure into clean, usable data. You are extracting the wisdom from the wound. Step 3. The Recovery Ritual. This is your Senzu being. After the analysis, you must consciously and actively recover. This is not about distracting yourself with entertainment or suppressing the feeling. It's about metabolizing the experience. This ritual can take many forms. For some, it might be an intense workout, literally burning away the frustration and turning it into physical strength. For others, it might be 30 minutes of silent meditation, observing the feelings of failure without judgment, letting them pass through you. For many, the most powerful tool is journaling, writing out the entire story of the failure, the pain, the anger, the lessons learned, until the emotional charge is gone. You must give your mind, body, and spirit the space to heal and integrate the data you just collected. Skipping this step is like getting wounded in battle and just continuing to fight without dressing the wound. You'll bleed out. Conscious recovery is what synthesizes the new power. Step 4. The Identity Declaration. This is the final and most crucial step. Once you have analyzed the failure and completed your recovery ritual, you must consciously recalibrate your identity. You must make a declaration. Say it out loud. Write it down. Before, I thought my limit was pitching to a room of 10 people. I just failed pitching to a room of 100. It hurt, but I survived. I now know I can handle that pressure. My new baseline is a room of 100. The fear is gone. Or, before, I thought running a 10-mile race would destroy me. I just failed at mile 18 of a marathon. I now know that 10 miles is just a warm-up. My identity has changed. You are actively rewriting the code of your self-concept based on the hard evidence of your survival. You are telling yourself a new, more powerful story. This is how you lock in the gains from your Zenkai Boost and ensure you never shrink back to your old container. You become, by declaration, a more advanced version of yourself. Phase 5. The proof. Does this philosophy actually work, or is it just an inspiring idea from a cartoon? Look no further than the master strategist of the Zenkai, Prince Vegeta himself. On planet Namek, his entire strategy for survival and growth was a conscious, repeated application of this exact protocol. He wasn't just a victim of circumstance, he was a hunter of near-death experiences. When he was outmatched by Frieza's henchman Zarbin, he fought, lost, and was left for dead. But after recovering, he didn't run. He actively sought Zarbin out again, knowing the Zenkai from his first beating had elevated him. He tested his new power, proved it was superior, and eliminated the threat. Later, facing the overwhelming power of the Ginyu force, he allowed the warrior Rikun to beat him to within an inch of his life. Why? Because he knew Goku was coming. He gambled that he would be healed, and that the resulting Zenkai Boost was his only chance to close the gap on his ultimate rival, and on the tyrant Frieza. It was a terrifying, high-stakes calculation. He wasn't just fighting, he was weaponizing failure. This concept isn't confined to fiction. It is a deep truth about complex systems, including human beings. The 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche built his entire worldview around a similar idea. His most famous aphorism, "What does not kill me makes me stronger," is a perfect, one-sentence summary of the Zenkai philosophy. He believed that life's greatest hardships were not obstacles to be avoided, but necessary challenges that forge a powerful individual, the Übermensch. He championed the concept of Amor Fati, a love of one's fate. Not just accepting your failures, but loving them as the essential ingredients of your greatness. In modern times, the scholar and statistician Nassim Taleb gave this phenomenon a scientific name: antifragility. He observed that some systems, like the human immune system, ecosystems, or a startup company, are not just resilient to shocks, stress, and chaos. They actually require that chaos to learn, adapt, and grow stronger. An immune system that is never exposed to germs becomes weak and brittle. A person who is never exposed to failure becomes psychologically fragile. The logic is undeniable. Every failure is a data point. It's a stress test of your strategies, your skills, and your character. By avoiding failure, you are choosing to avoid the most valuable, unfiltered, and potent data you will ever receive. You are choosing to remain untested, unproven, and ultimately, fragile. To embrace the Zenkai philosophy is to declare that you will no longer live in the Plateau Prison. You will actively seek the stress tests. You will mine them for data, recover with intention, and allow every defeat to forge you into a more powerful version of yourself. Phase 6. The call to action. The fire of the forge is hot, but the steel it creates is unbreakable. You have the blueprint now. You understand the philosophy. The only thing left is the application. So I want you to start right now, in the comments below. Let's create a library of power. Tell me about a failure that you thought would break you, but in hindsight, it ended up being your biggest Zenkai boost. What was the lesson you learned that changed everything for you? Your story will inspire someone else in this community who is in the middle of their own battle. And if you are ready to stop fearing failure and start weaponizing it, if you are ready to break your own limits and forge a legacy of strength, then join the Limit Breaker crew. Hit that subscribe button and power up that notification bell. This is our dojo. We train here together, and we leave no one behind. Now, mastering the Zenkai Boost is about turning external pain into internal power. But what happens when the biggest battle isn't against an outside force, but against your own pride? What happens when your own ego becomes the ceiling? That is the next level of this training. And that's what we break down in our deep dive analysis, the Vegeta complex. How your ego is killing your growth. Click the video on your screen right now. Your training session is not over. It's just beginning.